and welcome once again to EWTN's Bookmark. I'm Doug Keck, your host. Our guest author is Michaelann Martin, who along with Michaelann Martin wrote Girls' Night Out, Emmaus Road Publishing. Great to have you here on EWTN's Bookmark.
Thank you.
Now, it's great to have you here. Now, your name is Martin. There's another Martin who shows up quite a bit on EWTN named Curtis Martin. Could you be related?
It would be my husband.
He's your husband. Okay.
Father of Michaelann.
Okay, and he's been a regular now in our series with Danny Abramowitz, his very, very popular show. And you were on with the guys, not only on the show, but on our live show a number of months back.
Exactly. We did some sessions on marriage and family. So Debbie Herbeck and I joined the boys.
Was that a little different for you?
It was. It was fun.
That's right. Peter Herbeck's wife as well was also on the program. And Peter, who's with Renewal Ministries, a lot of people see him from Ralph Martin, of course, is also on the program. Now, as well as being an author of this particular book, you're an author of other books as well, some of which we've talked about in the past here on this program.
Most definitely. I've written a book, Woman of Grace, a Bible study for married women, and also Catholic Parent Book of Feasts on celebrating the liturgical year and the family, really bringing the faith at home.
Right, and a number of years ago, Family Matters, right? It was a book that you authored with your husband, Curtis, right? And we actually did a 13-part series.
We did.
So you are doing a lot. You're writing books. I know you help out with Focus, which is the major work that Curtis really is involved in. And you've got how many children now?
We have 8 children.
8
7 sons and 1 daughter.
7 sons and 1 daughter. How do you find the time to do all of these things? Are you a super mom that people look at and say, I can't relate to you at all?
I don't think of myself as a super mom. I really think it's by God's grace. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and making the time, God allows me to find little pockets of time to do things He puts on my heart. Right. This book in particular took probably about 5 years of actually researching, praying, doing the activities, and really finding something that was authentically Catholic and fun. You know, the subtitle is Having Fun with Our Daughters While Raising a Woman of God. Right. And I think that's the key for me, was to find fun activities to really instill the faith and femininity so that my daughter would understand, and other mothers and daughters would be able to understand the beauty that God has given us as women.
Now, I can understand on one level, you know, Girls' Night Out usually sounds like a bunch of ladies going out for a drink or something. And this, as you say, having fun with your daughter while raising a woman of God. And we have a series that we have on that we're running right now, having to do with girls, all things girls as well. So obviously there's a need. Now I'm wondering with this situation, I could see in your case where you've got one daughter in the midst of a sea of men, okay? But is this something that's important for women who just have daughters or one daughter?
I think it doesn't matter how many daughters you have. I think the issue is, in our culture, women are losing their identity, their feminine identity. Some are just giving it away. And
how so? What do you mean they're losing their identity?
Well, I think there's this challenge for women to be like men. There's this androgyny, and to really get back to our roots. And Pope John Paul II wrote beautifully about the genius of women and celebrating femininity. And I think this book, for me, was a way. At that time, there was very little written when I first started working on this for authentic Catholic femininity. And so God put it on my heart to share this, because I wrote it for mothers, because a lot of the women I work with, young mothers and more mature mothers, are lost. They were not passed on the richness of the grace of being a woman, created woman. And so even though it's...
So is that our parents' fault? Is that the culture's fault? Is that our fault for not listening?
I think it's all of the above. I think it's a mixed bag, and each woman has her own story and her own background and her own baggage. And what I wanted to do was re-enlighten women what a great joy it is to be a woman, how to fulfill your God-given roles, whether that's mother, spiritual mother, and then to help instill these deep values and virtues in our daughters.
Now, your daughter's
way.
15 at the time that this book is out, basically. 15, 16?
She's 15 now, but I really wrote it for preteen.
Well, I was going to ask you that, because you did mention that you were working on it for 5 years. So did some event happen? Did something click that said, I need to do this?
Well, what happened was my husband was working with our sons, and as questions would come up and really instilling the beauty of masculinity and love and married love to our sons in a mature way, I realized I needed to start preparing materials to instill the richness of our faith and even married love to our daughter. And we began to see things happen in puberty. The hormones hit and emotions hit, and you look at this child and you say, where's my son? You were so nice a year ago. What happened to you?
There's a big change.
And all that identity issues, trying to separate from mom and dad and really become that individual. So I knew I needed to really instill some of these rich truths before those rapids of puberty hit. And I really, now I'm grateful, because there are times where Michaelann and I are not on the same page, and I remind her, remember when we talked about this and I told you it was going to be rough, and you know I love you, and I'm only concerned about your soul and your eternal well-being, that Dad and I are putting these restrictions on you or these parameters to help you. And she remembers and she changes. She gets it, and the emotion is gone, and we connect again.
So what is the age you would think that this book is targeted for, and do you think sometimes people have waited too late to have those discussions?
For me, I was thinking around 10, 11, 12, because it's interesting that girls now are even maturing younger. Some say it could be the hormones in food and different things, the chemicals, but they're actually maturing earlier. So I do think 10 years old is not too early. And if you read the book, it's not super intrusive. It's very delicate and natural, and that's why I think moms should read it and make it their own and then pass it on to their daughter. I do think there is the temptation to wait, and the problem I see, many of the women I work with, they're dealing with a full-blown 16, 17-year-old who now is wearing immodest clothing, wants to stay out all night with boys and girls, has no sense of decorum, modesty in her actions or thoughts, and now they want to jump in and start catechizing her. That's going to be a lot tougher to do that. You obviously can with God's grace and charity. It's never too late. But I think it's much easier when you and your daughter are still close and you're in that great relationship when they're a little bit younger.
And also, I'm wondering, you see Curtis with the boys. Obviously, we always talk about male bonding and buddy movies, and guys kind of through sports and things have a certain connection. Were you trying to establish that for your daughter as well?
I think I was. And I think there are times where my daughter, I notice on Sunday afternoons when we're on our second football game, she starts to get a little bit grouchy. And so we actually started doing activities together. We paint together on Sundays. Or one of my favorite dates that we did is we went and had our nails done, and we did the manicure and the pedicure thing. Well, we actually went out and bought a foot spa, and we just kind of escape back into the bathroom. We do our own little foot pedicures, so it's not as expensive, but we have this time together to be girls. And she changes. She just blossoms into this beautiful young woman instead of that nasty girl who was just tired of football. And so I think I was trying to say, hey, it's okay, let's go celebrate being girls a little bit. We don't always have to be just like the guys. We're not supposed to be.
In the introduction, you say that you may find that you have better ideas for dates than I've come up with, and that's great. You may discover more casual methods of integrating the tough topics into your regular conversations with your girls. That's even better. The goal is for you to spend time with your daughter discussing the richness of our Catholic faith.
Exactly.
So it's really just kind of a simple guideline, and it's really not hard and fast rules, right?
Exactly. And really, I think when I came back to my fullness of understanding of our Catholic faith, it was embracing that I was a daughter of God, and that I had a relationship with Him and a relationship with my mother, Mary, my mother, and all of that changed me, helped me to grow. And so really that's foundational, trying to give those pearls to my daughter. And then how that affects the clothes we wear, how that affects the way we comport ourselves, how we behave with girls friendships, how it should affect our friendships with boys, how it should affect the way we discern. There's even a chapter and lesson on vocation discernment. You know, to really ask God, what do you want
to the married
with
life
me?
or to the religious life.
And so many girls aren't doing that, just right into, I'm supposed to be married, no question, like, Lord, what do you have for me? And I think a lot of it, really, I wrote from my personal journey, and my mother was fabulous in helping me to discover authentic femininity, and so the roots were there.
Now, one of the things you were alluding to earlier, and you're talking about getting started early, and I remember this in the book, you talked about the idea, concept of investing in our children and setting up something, I guess, maybe it was that Curtis had first brought up to you, with the idea of relational bank accounts. And as you said, the idea that you need to have that investment.
Very
so like you
important.
said, when you start to have those disagreements and things like that, that there's a reservoir of goodwill
Exactly.
and understanding, right?
And I would say this is one of the things, as I've been giving workshops on Girls' Night Out to mothers of all ages, with teenagers, with adult women, they've told me that's been key for them. And the idea is that we are investing constantly with our time, with our attention, with our, sometimes monetarily, to go out for a treat and buy a cappuccino and have some investment. There's an emotional bank account, so that when I have to tell her, you have to be home by midnight, you can't stay to the party till 2 o'clock, that's a withdrawal. And we're going to have to make withdrawals as parents as we're helping raise our children. And you always want to keep the reservoir in your investment higher than your withdrawals. And what happens, we've seen many young people, when their parents have made too many withdrawals and not as many investments, they begin to check out. They separate, they disconnect.
Well, how is that for you too? Because with you guys working in a sense in apostolate and ministry, you know, sometimes you can get the preacher's kid rebellion kind of thing, the feeling the pressure, or that they get more pressure from their friends because you're supposed to be a goody good, you know, goody two shoes kind of a thing, and there can be that rebellion. And also the idea, sometimes people are concerned, they say, well, they're growing up in this little bubble, and then when they go outside and the air hits them, they're not going to know how to deal with it. How do you deal with something like that? And is that something you deal with on these dates with your daughter?
Oh, I think yes, we deal with them with our daughter. We deal with them with all of our children, and each one individually, because each child is different in dealing with different issues, and just their personality and temperament is different. So I think in there, we've really tried to give them freedom to make decisions, but also provide the boundaries, that this is our faith, this is who we are, and there are some things that are non-negotiable. We will pray the rosary as a family. We will sit down and eat dinner together every night. We will try. We will get to Mass on Sunday. We take the whole family to confession. There are certain things that are a given. But in the realm of then they decide, we try to give them freedom to be the individual that God has helped them, created them to be. And we have discussions. We're always talking to our children. Try to pull concepts out of them so that they open up. I think because I did homeschool the kids up through 8th grade, we're close. I think they have a comfort to talk to us just about anything. And now that they're in high school and college, I do feel freedom to say, hey, how are things going? You getting to Mass? Are you know, how's your spiritual life? Are you praying? And my one son, you know, not too long ago said, no, Mom, I haven't been praying. You know, just that vulnerability. You say, well, I think if you're really struggling, that might be a place to start. Not push him, sit down and pray with me, but to give him, to be able to coach. Your role is no longer telling them what to do, but coaching them. And very much so with my daughter, especially now that she's in high school and experiencing new friends and wanting to be an individual, trying to remind her of her roots. And oftentimes I'll just say, Mariana, what message are you sending? What do you want people to read from you or to see you? And she comes to her own, she comes to pretty good conclusions.
Well, you say this guide is divided into 10 lessons that are accompanied by a date activity for you and your daughter to experience together. You also say, before you begin this journey, it's a good idea to purchase 2 journals, which can be found in most bookstores. Let me ask you, on the date kind of experience, when you do it, over what period of time should someone be doing these, like 10 dates?
Yeah, you know, we did it over a year. We did once a month. And it gave me enough time, well, I was writing it, so I was writing, reading, accumulating information, and trying to really make things truly Catholic, because a lot of the great material out there was Protestant. And I just really wanted it to be authentically Catholic in the fullness of truth. And so I did, you know, my research and planning, and then by the time we took the date, I had kind of assimilated and made things my own so that our conversation flew naturally. I wasn't just, you know, scripting things. And but it was once a month, and it was a beautiful time where we actually looked forward to first Saturday of the month we were going to go out, and that was our date time. We had it on the calendar, we scheduled it, and the journals really became a time for us to swap, to write to each other, sometimes write personal thoughts. Sometimes it became a prayer
So it wasn't
journal.
just for your own diary kind of a thing?
No. And so it was just another avenue of communication. And now I think it's sometimes more difficult for us to talk when we're angry or we don't understand each other, and we can write it down and we can share each other our journal, and
the old
then our
dialoguing
hearts
for
are
marriage
softened.
encounter.
Yes.
That's about,
And so it's just another way to communicate that's non-obtrusive.
Right. Now you say it might be a challenge to carve out time for your daughter. It's not enough to just have her accompany you on the usual errands and carpooling. You must take time to actually prepare your thoughts for these dates. So it's not the kind of thing that's just an addendum to something else you're doing.
Right.
Like you said, it has to be scheduled.
Yes.
And it's important for her to see this as something important to you, right?
Yes, that I want to invest in her. Exactly. This is time that I'm scheduling from my busy schedule to be with her. And oftentimes I will say, Mariana, could we make a date? Things still come up. And she knows that language. She's like, oh, yeah, she schedules the whole night. She won't take babysitting jobs. She won't make arrangements to do sleepovers. She knows she has a date with me. And I get a babysitter for the children. I'm free to go. And so she's honored by that. I think especially in a big family, we have really had to work harder to find that individual time with our children. And but when we do, they just stand 2 feet taller. They are so honored by the fact that we are taking time to be with just them. Right. So it's become something really kind of special in our home.
Well, let's look at, like, in a sense, a format on lesson 1, which is being an awesome daughter of God. You are His princess, and you have a chapter, and then you go on to Girls' Night Out, number 1, plan a special tea party with your daughter. You said, when I was a child, I had many physical deformities on my legs and hands. I found myself the butt of many unkind jokes and an object of ridicule. When I come home from school in tears after being made fun of, my mother would hold me and tell me I was a beautiful gift from God.
You're going to make me cry. Brings back a lot of memories. Yes, I was. I have still very many deformities, and just the realization that those don't matter. God created you unique and special, and through our baptism, that we're made His daughter.
Right.
Was a very real concept for me, and to be able to. Sometimes I think when I've been vulnerable with my children about the difficulties that I experienced, it becomes more real for them, and definitely it did with Mariana too.
Yeah, well, one of the things you do talk about earlier in the book, and obviously some of the dates have to do with going out to, like you say, play, in the sense of getting your nails done or those kinds of things,
girly
or facials
things.
For two, girly things. But also the idea of the extreme pressure, especially the body image pressure
Very
that's put on everybody, especially women, in this kind of perfectionistic image that are put, airbrushed world that we live in, of unreal looking people, and people being put up as if they're supposed to mimic that.
Right. And I think girls feel that more than boys. And that's why I really wanted to build on the spiritual value, that your worth comes mostly from the fact that you are a daughter of God, and to build on that, to build on your relationship with God, that self-confidence. But I do get into those issues of fashion, of what our world is trying to push at you, and how to discern the good, the evil, and how to still feel fun, fresh, and trendy, but be modest and have elegance and style. And it was really quite a lot of fun to actually just fine-tune this with Mariana. When she was younger, she was so open to all of it. And the beauty is now, when we found ourselves shopping for homecoming dresses or prom dresses, and we're able to go back to where we laid this foundation. What's the message you want to send? What are the tricks we do? Let's see if it's really modest, And there's a couple of different steps we do to see if clothes are covering enough of us. Are we veiling the tabernacle? And she's right there, And I think so many of my friends struggle with their daughters over clothes, over modesty. And I think I'm just so glad that we were able to put these deep roots down early. That's why I think there is value in doing it before the confrontation starts. Right.
And you say, ask your daughter if she can give some examples of situations where we as women act common. What do you mean?
Common. Well, I give the analogy that they're this precious teacup, one of a kind, hand painted. There's no two alike, and oftentimes we treat our bodies like we're a paper Starbucks cup or a mug, a ceramic mug, and the mug is just common. Are you just like everybody else? Do you use the same kind of language? Do you dress in the grungy clothes or the immodest clothes just so you fit in? That would be common. You're a unique gift from God. You're one of a kind. So it's okay to put your personal stamp on the way you do your hair, the clothes you wear, how you cover your body. And so that was an element of common. Do I just try and be like everybody else? Do I look like, everyone sitting on that bench? Or is it okay for me to have confidence to be unique?
Right, in a true way of being unique.
Right, right. That God
Not
made
in
me
being unique like everybody else.
Yes,
which is
exactly.
what the culture usually.
And yet it's still okay to get your hair done, to wear clothes that you fit in. But if it's immodest, do you really want to go there? You know, be bold, be modest, but you can still be fashionable.
Right, and have enough confidence that's there already to be your own person.
Exactly. And this is taken, I would say, it takes more money. You have to, you can't put a price tag on modesty. Because I do feel like the immodest clothes, the things that are trendy, are cheap. But if you want to be modest, you're going to pay more for it. And we've actually worked in our budget that I can spend more on Mariana's clothing because we want her to have a sense of elegance and also confidence that she fits in, but to be modest. And sometimes, you know, bathing suits. She'll say to me, Mom, how come they put all the cutest fabrics in those string bikinis? And here I'm trying to be modest in a one-piece or a tankini that covers my midriff, and they only put it in the boring fabric. And that's, you know, I think, oh, well, let's pray about that. I'm sorry, honey, but you still look great, and you can be confident when you go out that you're not causing someone the near occasion of sin or being a temptation by showing too much of your body and building her up. But that's the culture.
Right. And you've got a girl talk section in each part, journal time, and even in prayer time, and ideas for bonding after your date. And some of the other, you're talking about embrace your natural beauty. Supernatural beauty begins with relationship with God the Father. That's interesting. Beauty, purity, modesty, and dress, all the things you talk. Mary as our mother. One of the ones that struck me too here is number 7, virtuous friendships. Because you know, there was a movie that was very well known a number of years ago called Mean Girls and things like that. It does seem to be out there.
It is.
That, especially with the internet, we hear about these things through Facebook and these kind of things. This kind of very, very mean relation,
catty, and girls can be. And when
why do you think
girls
that is?
Without virtue could be very catty. That's why I think it's so important to build virtue first in ourselves, but in our daughters, so that then even when their friends come over, make your home the home court. I love the home court advantage. Have things in your home where your children want to bring friends over so that you get to know them. Oftentimes you can instill little points in conversations, but you're actually going to be helping forming other girls as you're forming your daughter. And I think friendships can be so tricky. And we covered that because I don't think many girls are fully prepared for how nasty other girls can be. And I think the internet, texting, phones, cell phones, add a whole new dimension. When you're not looking face to face, they have this boldness to say horrible things or type.
Smiling in your face.
And to really prepare her to have a tough armor, but to have a soft heart. You know, and to continue.
And I guess to have that discernment to find
good friends.
Other virtuous friends who like you for
so
who you
important.
are, and not for what you can do for them.
Parents are afraid to speak into their children's friendships. And I think that's part of our responsibility to help them because they're not discerning well. And to be able to coach them, guide them in friendships. And then there's, you know, a chapter on friendships with boys and girls. And that adds a whole new dimension of confusion. Now I'm amazed, you know, kids in grade school are talking about having boyfriends, girlfriends, going out. And I think, you know, we've really tried to encourage even our high schoolers, really don't begin dating one-on-one till you're ready to discern, your vocation, and then marriage. That's for college.
But it's amazing. You look at the advertisements in the newspapers, and kids who are like 9 and 10 are dressing for success or something here, and it's
true.
It's amazing. One of the things that struck me too, and this is something culture. You talk about a story yourself. I remember not fitting in with the in crowd of girls in high school. I was excluded from my looks and other reasons. Then you say one year I accidentally got into some trouble with some older kids and was suspended from school for a few days. Does Curtis know the story?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I became very popular after that negative incident.
It's true. Everyone wanted to be my friend once I went bad. And to be able to, what happened was I stayed true with my not so popular friends because they were true friends. But I had to find that out the hard way. But that really has always stuck with me, that it's that crab mentality. The crabs are, when one crab starts to climb out of the bucket, the others will pull him back down. And I think in our culture, teens are that way. Misery loves company. So they'd rather help you be bad than encourage you to be good. And to actually prepare our kids for that. You know, and maybe I had a little bit more of a desire to share this reality with my children because I did homeschool up through 8th grade, and part of that was I wanted to really give them deep roots. But when we put them in high school, to really embrace the culture, but have a confidence in their person, in their faith, and who God created them to be, was our goal.
Right. Now, you talk about later in the book, Embracing Womanhood and Exploring Vocational Options, you talk about the difference between male and female and scientific evidence to support it. But this struck me, women have more fat in their heads.
We do.
That's a good thing?
That's a good thing because we make more connections. We can be more instantaneous in emotion, whereas men, having less fat in their heads, they are naturally more logical. They make logical connections, whereas women can give you an answer. We have intuition. Part of that is the way our brains are made up, and so we can be spontaneous in things that men can't.
Okay, just before we go, another book, maybe one having to do with the guys, or what?
Maybe, you know, I do spend a lot of time with my sons, and so I may do a mother-son book, something along those lines.
Well, thank you so much, Michaelann, for putting this out, and I know for one who has a daughter as well. Thank you so much, Michaelann. Speaking here with Michaelann Martin, who along with Mariana Martin wrote Girls Night Out, Having Fun with Your Daughter While Raising a Woman of God, published by Emmaus Road Publishing, available through the EWTN Religious Catalog. Check it out, and check us out next time right here on EWTN's Bookmark.